Good morning. Welcome to the event management series, and this is our fourth in a series of 6 broadcasts. And joining me later in the programme will be Silvania Trani from the who is Senior Promotions and Communications Officer for the Department of Regional Development and Lands, and who works closely with the Community Resource Centre Network. And Geraldine Capp, who is Public Relations Manager for Regional Development and Lands. And Geraldine started her career in Perth as a journalist with the West Australian newspaper, and continued an illustrious career in both the private sector and government in Canberra and Melbourne. So you've got lots to look forward to there. We're starting off really to talk about how to market an event successfully, and our information, or my information, is based on a number of years, probably too many, of marketing events, and things that we've learnt along the way, in particular how to do this at a low cost and to be effective. I believe the first event that we ran, our total advertising budget was about $32. That attracted a couple of thousand people. Now we run events twice a year, which attracts around 12,000 people each, and our budget is around $8,000 to $10,000 for marketing. I don't know if that's good value for money or not, but we've progressed a great deal and we've learnt a great deal, and we still get good value for money. Anyway, I think that's enough of me. We really need to move on now to the presentation, and we'll go through how you can market your event at the right cost and effectively. Okay, so we're going to give you a range of information and ideas to help you to market your event in the best possible way and at the lowest possible cost. The first thing you need to think about is an advertising strategy. What is your event? What's it actually about? Who is it going to appeal to? You need to be looking there at special age groups, interest groups. Pick out people that you believe would be the main interest groups, and this is your target market. So how do you reach this target market? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can reach people with the media, some good, some bad, some indifferent. First of all, pick out some features to promote. If you've got a multi-feature event, pick out the ones that you really want to push. Maybe a special interest display area, or some of the entertainment. If you're having good entertainment, then push the entertainment side of it. Perhaps competitions and prizes that you're running within the event might be things that you want to push forward. So you need to target the advertising. Over the years, we see literally millions of dollars thrown up in the air on advertising, which lands on 3 people who are really interested in the event. So you need to be looking at actually targeting your advertising and spending the money wisely. We can suggest that you send out group invitations, and you can offer special deals like discounted entry, food and beverage vouchers if you've got food and beverage on sale at your events, and you can work that out, pre-arrange with your caterers and traders. This will create a win-win situation where they're guaranteed a customer and the people are getting something for nothing. You need to be placing posters and flyers in places they go, specific shops, clubs, community centres and tourist spots. Again, dependent on your target market as to where you put this. Advertising specialist publications. Niche market publications are the way to go if you want to reach a specific target. Another way is to have inserts and programs and show bags at similar prior events. If these people are going to go along to an event that's similar to yours, then that's the place to advertise your event, because if they're going to go there, they're going to come to yours. The other thing you can do in regard to that kind of promotion is to offer a contra deal. We fortunately run 2 events a year, so we can work with other events and offer promotion of their events at our event. So one each way. If you have traders at your event, definitely use them to promote it. They have special interest in promoting your event because your attendees are their customers, and the more you get, the more they get. So have them distribute your advertising and flyers at prior events they attend. Send them a pack of flyers when you confirm their booking and get them to distribute them for you. Costs nothing. How do you get them to help you? Well, apart from the natural feeling that they want to attract customers for themselves, if you treat them well, if they like you and your event, they'll help you to promote it. We have a loyal band of traders that have been with us for over 10 years now, and because we treat them well, they look after us. So we make them our event partners. Give them a goodie bag, a special promotional gift or certificate of appreciation. This is all low cost but effective in building relationships and loyalty with these people who will promote your event. So, on to basic advertising. Posters and flyers are simple and effective. These can be self-produced if you've got a decent printer, computer system, or you can commercially source them. Whichever way, you need to look for discounts and contra deals. You give something and get something with stationery suppliers, ink suppliers, or printers. You can offer them free advertising at your events, promotional opportunities, free tickets, etc. Placement of posters and flyers. Local businesses, if you attract visitors to the area, they will benefit. Visitor centres within the area you wish to cover. We use virtually the whole of Western Australia for our advertising through visitor centres. And other prior events where your target market are likely to be. Clubs, community notice boards, etc. are all good places to advertise, and we've not really spent much money yet. Always use a combination of posters and flyers. If we place an A4 poster to attract attention, people will see it, but they may forget about it before they go home. So always have a quantity of A5 flyers to be taken home and put on the fridge as a constant reminder. And always link all your advertising with a common look. There's an example of a poster and flyer combination that has that common look and will do the job for you. Here's a little thought. If you send out a bit of mail, put an advert on your envelopes. How much mail comes through your letterbox with adverts on it? It's quite legal and it goes through a lot of hands, so it's another people or more people that are going to see the advertising. The print media. Always look for a contra deal with these people. They'll probably tell you won't get one, but if you try hard enough, you will. I learnt a long time ago that there's only 2 answers to any questions, neither of which are lethal. So always ask for whatever you want. That way you can save money and get more for your dollar. You can offer them promotional opportunities, presence at event. They can come along and give away their balloons. They can promote their brand. You can offer their logo on the advertising, mentions in credits. You can also talk to them about multi-paper deals. Many of these people are part of groups such as community newspapers who have about 18 branches, rural press who have 10 or 12, and regional press who have a similar number. So ask for a discount for placing ads in several publications. You can usually pick these out to suit the area you want to advertise in and get a decent deal. Never take no for an answer. A good thing to do is to get to know your local editors, journalists and reps. Take them out for a coffee. Have a chat to them. Get them on your side. And always ask for editorial space to match the ad. And when you do an editorial, write your own editorial with as much detail as possible, because you know your event best. And then this way it can be edited down if required, rather than expanded by someone who is unfamiliar with what you are doing. I've seen people put in very small bits of editorial information and get quite a bit of editorial about an event that you wouldn't even recognise. Provide pictures. They're worth 1,000 words, they say, and editors love pictures because they colour their pages. And always book a right-hand page. People will argue about this, but I will stick to this. That's the one that you see when you turn the page. For the left-hand one, you need to look backwards. So right-hand page is the way to go. The advertising reps will probably tell you there's no difference. And if you look at their papers, you'll find out, because that's where they sell their advertising to the big companies like Harvey Norman. So they don't want you on there. You could try a bring along, listen and win type of an ad, where you can get people to put their name and mobile number on. This has a two-edged sword to it, really. It will encourage attendance because it's an ad, and it will encourage attendance because people will come because they think they might get something for nothing. And it's a way for you to monitor your advertising. You actually know that people have read this if they write the name and the phone number and bring it along to the event and put it in a box. Editorials, a little bit more about editorial. Compiling a press release. Remember, the person who reads it may not have a clue about your event. You know everything there is to know about your event, so you may tend to skip things. These people do not know what this is. It's just a piece of paper that goes across their desk, and they have to find out from what you tell them what your event's about. The first paragraph needs to set the scene. What is it? Where is it? When is it? The cost, is it a free event? All the important things need to be in the early part of a press release. When they edit press releases, they usually edit them from the bottom upwards. Then you put in your special attractions, people, features, expectations to attendance, etc. Feature pages are offered by most of these papers, like Community News Group, and offer free editorial and picture space, and pretty good value for money, really. They usually have a limited number of words, and it's usually around about 100, 120, but you need to know that so you can write your own editorial to get the message across, and then some sub-editor doesn't chop it up and make it unrecognisable. This is extremely important. As I said before, if you don't give them enough and they write it for you, you might not even recognise your own event. Always make sure you get the thing back to check. They'll send you your advert back to check, but sometimes they don't send the editorial. So make sure they send it back for you to check and amend before it's published. Local community news letters and specialist publications are likely to provide more editorial space because they're always short on news, and if you can give them a good story, they'll probably print it. And I've found from experience that a lot of community newspapers are just happy to print exactly what you put. They'll cut and paste it into their newsletter because it's easy for them. The Senior, Have a Go News, those sort of specialist publications, and there are many others in the country too, are all good value for money in advertising. They hit target markets and certainly have a readership. For free promotional entries, you should try RAC Horizons What's On, or the Weekend West 7 Days, or the Sunday Times The List. All these are high circulation papers, but they do need a fairly long lead time. You need about 3 months to get the message across to these people. Send them pictures, send them a little bit of editorial. They won't print much, but if they like your event, they will print it. You can even try a free ad in the Quokka. Anything in print is worth a try. And always provide follow-up reports and pictures to increase awareness of the event for next time it's held. You can advertise heavily into an event and get a crowd there, But then you need to keep the thing up in people's mind by sending out press releases of reports with photographs, etc. And anything else that's linked to that event. Again, we're fortunate we run our events every 6 months, so we are constantly in the press, because as we advertise for one, hold the event, report on that, we then start to advertise for the next one, and the whole thing just goes along throughout the year. There's a bit of an example of the horizons. You don't get much, but you get a good colourful picture. And there's also one there from 7 Days, who again will give you a colour picture if they like your story. And 7 Days usually run up with a lead on that for about 3 weeks prior to. I think Horizons magazine now has a circulation of around 300,000, and that goes in people's letterboxes. And there's a couple of feature sections. Again, maybe 100 words of editorial, a picture and your ad, all for the price of your ad. And follow-ups. The one there under the Murray Mail is a report on the actual event, and the one next to it is a report of something connected with the event where people are being rewarded for their work at that event. So it drags the thing out longer in the people's mind. Multi-page features, if you've got that kind of event that you can get one put together, are excellent. A good advertising rep will look to build up feature pages for an event. They will approach local businesses for support ads, but you can help them in this by promoting the idea with your local contacts. You know your local businesses, you know who supports you, and just talk to them about putting a support ad. The benefit to you, every extra page of support ads will provide more editorial space, because the thing is on a space for space ratio, and therefore more mentions of your event. It's possible to get sometimes 6 or 7 pages in a multi-page feature just with support ads. The internet, well, there's a lot of it, and you just get onto as many websites as possible. Most of them have events calendars, the ones that are into tourism. And if you're lucky enough to be involved with Tourism WA and you're on westernaustralia.com, you will then find that so many other websites will pick up from that. And all these people will be carrying the same story. So if somebody's travelling in Western Australia and they want to go to an event, then they don't have to look very far. And now, of course, we have social media, Facebook and Twitter, which should always be used. TV, not a favourite of mine. For community events with a low budget, TV is far too expensive and not effective. There are so many ads these days that most people are turned off by them. At one time, you could probably, if you were very, very lucky, stand up and switch the kettle on and sit down before the programme started again. Now, with the majority of ad breaks being 10 or 12 sections, you have time to get up and make a 3-course meal. Adverts are a turn-off. That's why they show the same ones over and over, so at least you see it once. GWN7 info line, because we're talking to country people, aren't we, is free, and it's on the same day each weekday. You just need to send your information in. You can do that on the internet, and if somebody's looking for an event to attend, they will find it there. You can always try a press release to TV newsrooms by fax or email, and if it's a slow news day, you may get lucky and get room to get in there. Radio. ABC Radio, 6PR and others do live phone interviews before and during events. This is a good way for you to sell your own event and stimulate interest. These people will give you a call, maybe they'll ring you up the day before and say, I want to talk to you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you get on there and do your thing. If you've had a conversation with the interviewer beforehand, you can prime him with the questions that you want him to ask you. This is a really good way to promote your event, and it's free. Radio advertising is far more effective than TV. You can do all sorts of things and still listen to the radio. You just think what you could be doing while you're listening to the radio. You can't do that when you're watching television. There are less ads on radio, and you can choose a station that suits your target market. With television, there's so many stations now that suit nobody. Many of these radio stations have promotional vehicles, so they invite them along. They do live crosses and giveaways, etc. And they may attract people passing through the area who are listening to the local radio and want to go and get themselves a free whatever. Sometimes these people will say, oh, yes, we'll bring our promotional vehicle along, it'll cost you so much. And the answer to that really is, I don't want to promote your radio station, I want you to promote our event. Local community radio stations may run outside broadcasts at your event. We've had local radio doing that at our events. It can be very good because it can cut down on your entertainment costs, because while they're running their show, you don't have to pay artists to perform. And it provides an extra feature. You can also get free community announcements. All radio stations are required to provide free community announcements, and these include events and for non-profit organisations and groups. Look for joint promotion with radio stations. Talk to radio stations about giveaway tickets, prizes for phone-in competitions, etc. Be creative. The media in general, they need to be stimulated. You need to give them a hook, a word, a phrase, something that they'll hang on to. Many years ago, when we first started, we ran our events in the town of Yarloop, and we picked up this thing, In the Loop, and we used to run In the Loop events. And the first time we did any advertising, the telephone went wild with the press wanting to know what In the Loop was about. So it's as simple as that. You wouldn't realise just how these people were homing on something really strange. We actually still hold the registered trademark of In the Loop events because it was so worthwhile. You need to do most of the work for these people in the media, write their editorials, send them lots of media releases and pictures. Above all, ensure that you thank them for their contribution to your event. Next time they may remember and give you more. I think that's about the end of where we're going at the moment with this. We're going to take a very short break now, and then we'll come back with Geraldine and Sylvania, and we'll take some calls a little bit later on. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining in this forum. I'm Geraldine Capp, and I'm the Public Relations Manager with the Department of Regional Development and Lands. I started my career as a journalist, and I've got information I'd like to share with you about how to approach the media and how to handle the media to promote your event. I want to start with just some ideas around what the media values, what is important to journalists. So this is just to sort of set the context about understanding how to approach a journalist. Events that occur suddenly and frequently and that are dramatic are of most interest to journalists because they're reporting the news. So an event that is sudden and fits in with their timeframes is more likely to be reported than an event that's occurring gradually or at inconvenient times of day or night. Journalists are interested in conflict. So bad news is often more newsworthy than good news because it has drama and conflict in it. If an event is out of the ordinary, that is certainly going to attract the interest of the media because it has a greater effect in attracting readers to their news outlet, whether it's a newspaper or tuning into television or radio. Journalists are interested in stories and events and issues that report on elite people and important people, people who are of influence and who have power. So they're likely to get more interest than an event that doesn't have notable people. The media is also interested in stories that fit with their expectations. They're interested in stories that make it easy for them to report. That's got to align with their value on being media ready. And journalists have to evaluate a whole lot of issues in any one day about what is most newsworthy. So it's important to understand that if you approach a journalist, your event, your issue, your story certainly may not be as newsworthy to a journalist if they're dealing with perhaps bushfires or a road fatality, if they're dealing with a political scandal, if there are events are unfolding that are affecting people in a critical way. So it's also understanding what is newsworthy. There's a lot of competition among journalists, and you can use this to your advantage because there's more than one media outlet in your area, and you can offer your idea and pitch your story to one or more journalists, and they're always competing for stories, so there's information you can use around that. And journalists are often looking for stories that are prefabricated, so it's about packaging your information in a way that helps a journalist, that makes it easy for them, delivering information, delivering phone numbers, delivering photos in a bundle that makes it easy for them to handle. Because they have so much information to sift through, this is making it easy for them. Journalists work under time constraints, they have deadlines, and it's important to understand a little bit about the news cycle and when their deadlines are. So understanding what a radio journalist has to deliver compared to a newspaper journalist, there's differences, but if you have these people in your community, it's really important to understand exactly what their timeline is and their production cycle and their deadlines. And the last thing I just want to mention is logistics. Even though we have a huge network of global communications, we've got burgeoning social media, sometimes if it's difficult for a journalist to get to your event, they're not going to be interested, they won't attend. They're going to assess, is it worth me attending this event? If it's inconvenient, they simply won't. Also, it's important to remember that a lot of journalists in country areas are young and ambitious people. Sometimes they're working in the media for the first time, or they haven't been in the media that long, and they've got ambitions perhaps to work in major metropolitan media, and they're very ambitious, so you can understand how to deliver information to them that suits them, and you can form very strong relationships because they are so keen to get information. So just understanding some of those values I think is important. So down to some details that can really help you, I think. Identify which journalists in your area are going to be interested in your story. Journalists at your local newspaper, the local radio outlets I think are really important. And you can use a media statement to present information to the journalists. If they're tailored to your event and to a particular media outlet, that helps rather than just shooting out generic emails to half a dozen journalists on an email list. And a phone call is always important as well. Get their number, call them, have a chat. Pitch your story, and don't be offended if they're not interested, because it probably simply means there are so many other things happening on that day that are more newsworthy to that journalist. Don't take offence. What I suggest is over a year, if you have 4 events and you get a journalist that covers 2 of your events, that's a 50% strike rate, and I think that's really excellent. That is considered very successful media strategy if you had that kind of strike rate. Get to know the journalists, what they like, what they don't like in terms of their media coverage. Listen to what they present on radio, read your local newspaper, look for their byline, look at the sort of material that they're covering, and see if you can pitch your event to what you think they're interested in. The research is really important, because if you can show a journalist that you have a bit of knowledge about what they've written previously, they like that. It shows that you're interested in their work, and it shows that you're serious about communicating your event. You've got to capture their imagination. You've got to, sell your event, and certainly pitch it in a way that is going to be easy for a journalist to understand. On the CRC website, there are templates that you can use. There's a template for a media statement, and I certainly encourage you to look at that, and that will certainly help you present your information in a clear and coherent way. You can establish rapport with a journalist over a period of time, and you may think you have a strong friendship with a local journalist. The journalist's news values will almost always override the rapport and that relationship that you have, because the journalist is driven by a different set of values. So again, don't be offended if the journalist doesn't turn up or doesn't cover your event. There's always another opportunity. There will always be another event down the track. Just touching back on the sort of the competition that journalists have, you can certainly give different journalists different angles on your stories. If you have an important person turning up to your event, a government minister, your local member, see if there's an opportunity for the journalist to do interviews. I think that's really important. Journalists are interested in good quotes. They want access to important people who are making decisions, so please keep that in mind as well. With photographs, sometimes you can just bundle the media statement together with photographs if it's after the event. It's absolutely critically important to deliver photographs at the correct resolution. So a high resolution is 300 dpi, and it's absolutely important that you give captions with the names of each person in the photograph, and make sure every name is spelt correctly. It does nobody any good when people see names in newspapers spelt incorrectly, and the journalist is not going to ring and check if the names are spelt correctly. So that will enhance your reputation as well. I just wanted to sort of touch on a few don'ts as well. Don't exaggerate your event. Don't feel compelled to embellish anything. Just say the event as it is. If a journalist turns up and you've overpromised, that does you no good at all. Yeah. Don't ramble to a journalist. Keep it brief. They're interested in concise information. They want to receive it quickly. So have your pitch ready and perhaps practice that. If the journalist wants more information, they're going to ask. And don't hound a journalist. If they've said, no, I'm not interested, no, they're not interested. You can call a few days later, perhaps with a summary of your event, send in the pictures. That makes it easy for them. Don't keep hounding them. It just puts them offside, makes them angry. So I think it's important to understand the media in your area, understand who the journalists are, understand what they want and how they operate. And I think that's a good basis to go forward. You can call journalists. If they're on deadline and they can't talk, they will say so. With radio, it's really good to know the producer. You'll hear the announcer on the morning show or the afternoon show. You can certainly email the announcer. They often have a producer, and the producer is often just as important in getting material to air. So don't be afraid to ring up, make a pitch, send in some information, and certainly follow up. And I think you'll have increasing success if you follow some of those tips.
Thank you, Geraldine, and thanks, Terry, for all of your insight this morning. Good morning to everyone watching. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Silvana trainee. I work at the Department of Regional Development and Lands, focusing predominantly on promoting the CRC network. First up, I'd like to bring your attention to a marketing and promotion guide that was sent out to the network probably about 6 months ago. This document and all of its attachments and templates are also available on the CRC website. I'd just like to take you there for a moment and to show you what's in there, if I may. So under the Info for CRC folder, under the templates and guides, you'll find the marketing and promotion plan. Within this guide, there are a number of templates for you to use. For instance, a marketing and communications plan, and this is not just for a CRC, for an annual communications plan. It can also be used for a special event or project as well. There are some templates in there about writing a media release, and also in the guide itself, there's also information on how to write a radio community service announcement as well. In the other folders, you'll also find some event templates. In this folder, you'll find information about who your local member is. There's a file there, your local member of parliament, and it's been devised to show if you search your CRC name, it'll bring you to your local member and other people to invite to your event as well. And there's also some examples on order of proceedings and speech notes and invitation examples. You'll also find the CRC brand style guide in these folders. And of course, I'm always available for any advice and assistance. I'm sure you have my number. At this point, I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind CRCs that they have an obligation under their financial assistance agreement to acknowledge funding partners who are the Department of Regional Development and Lands through its the state government's Royalties for Regions program. So not only for publications, as you're well aware from your branding style guide, not only mentioning your funding bodies on publications, but also in your media statements, or if you're providing a community service announcement. And I'd also like to mention at this point, if you are putting together a media statement, it would be great if you could send it to me or to our department for approval before you issue that statement. And I just wanted to add here that it's important, why it's important to acknowledge your funding partners. And the reason for this is that it helps people in your community understand how you are able to provide these additional services to their community. It also informs decision makers. They need to know who is supporting you so that they can make informed decisions into the future about funding CRC. So that's why it's important to acknowledge your funding partners. I'd like to mention now that this is an interactive training session, and so we're happy to take your calls if you have any questions for Terry, Geraldine and myself. The number to call is 1800 678 208. So please call in. I'd like to possibly ask the panel some questions as well, and it's, what is the benefit of media attention as opposed to advertising, for instance? Why do we strive to continually try and get our information through a journalist into a newspaper rather than the easy way out, which is placing an advert?
Well, I can certainly answer that. Having your event, having your issues in the media lends credibility to your issue because advertising is paid. Media coverage, editorial space is free, and a journalist and a whole series of editors at a newspaper or a radio station or at a television station have judged that your information is newsworthy. So that is the credibility that your event gets in the media. And people buy news to consume as a product, to learn. So having your event featured in the media is also a very powerful way of communicating. That's how I see that, Silvana. Yeah.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Terry, anything to add on that?
I would agree with that. It lends credibility. If it's advertising, you're paying for it. So it's going to be good. You know, our event is good. But if somebody in the media is writing an article about it, that's saying that they think your event is good. So yes, definitely. I agree entirely.
And that's why also editorials are also really important as well.
That's where we always push for editorial.
Yeah.
If we're paying for advertising, we push for editorial too, yeah.
That number to call is 1800 678 208. Please call in your questions. I'd also like to add that this morning there was an announcement by Tourism that the Events Corp Regional Events Scheme is now available for grants of $5,000 to $50,000. All of the information is either you can linked by the ministerial media release or at the Events Corp website. So that closes, I believe, in February next year. So a great way to get some support on holding your event for your community. I'd also like to add, now that I have this opportunity, that for those of you who don't know about our contract with Quickmail, when you are holding events, there's information and promotional materials available for you through Quickmail, either in small amounts, but if you are looking for larger amounts, please give me a call or send me an email and I'll help you organise that as well. Also, being part of the network opens you up to having access to the CRC Special Projects Grant. You could think about jointly with other CRCs in your area for some bigger events, for applying for a grant to help you, pay for space, marquee space, or for promotional material. I know that there has been some successful applications in the past for the Caravan and Camping Show, for example, and the Minginoo Expo. Also the Beyond Gardens program, which we're currently also running a series of broadcasts through the Westlake network. So talk to your regional coordinators about that and see if your project or event could be worthy of receiving a grant.
Okay, it looks like all the callers are hiding this morning. No doubt we'll get some questions coming in the future, and we're all available to answer questions at any time, unless it's 6:30 in the morning. I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast today, and special thanks to Silvana and Geraldine. It's nice to have attractive young women to work with. I've made a career of that. And certainly they've put a different aspect or a different face on certain things. The next session in our series is going to focus on managing volunteers in events. And Margaret, my good colleague, and I will present this in a couple of weeks' time, I think. So thank you very much. Don't forget, take any and every opportunity to promote your event anywhere and everywhere. And we hope that your events will now be bigger and better. Thank you. Goodbye.